welcome to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. We are really excited to have you here today. We've got some great stuff to cover. There's so much going on out there right now, especially in the market. What can we expect? What can we do to protect ourselves? We're going to talk about that today. I'm here with Mark Stimson, my friend, father-in-law, and business partner. How you doing, Mark?
I am doing really good, Case. I'm so glad to be with you and our viewers today because what we're going to talk about today, I think, is going to maybe relieve a little bit of anxiety. There's a lot of noise out there right now, especially in the financial world. And what I would say is just take a deep breath. And if you're really worried about it, call your planner. Now, if you do everything yourself, it's kind of hard to call yourself, right? But I think one of the things that we can do is talk to our planner. The problem is right now, a lot of the big planners with box stores and things, they tend to disappear or you don't hear from them, right? When things are not going like they hope, right? And what we've seen the last 12, 14 months is exactly what I think we all know is happening. It's been a lot of negativity. So I think today's show is going to put some positivity and things that you can actively do to relieve the stress and the anxiety that you might be going through because you're not sure what's going to happen right now in the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, you know, when things are going well, we do see that there's a lot more phone calls out from those type of investment firms. And when things aren't going well, there's a lot more received phone calls, right? Because people are concerned. And so we all understand what market volatility is, right? It's the market moving up and down. And ultimately, it's not always a bad thing, right? It can be a great thing if it's going up because that's volatile to the upside, right? Yeah. It's when it goes the wrong way that really is a concern. And especially when it comes to retirement. It's a very different situation for somebody who's 5 to 10 years from retirement versus somebody who's 40 years old. Can you share why that's such a different circumstance?
Yeah, and this is really important to kind of understand. The closer, as Casey mentioned, that you get to retirement, the closer you need to be watching things because if you're in that red zone, that retirement red zone, we can have what's known as sequence of return risk. Well, again, what does that mean? That's a term that we need to truly understand because if we have a bad market situation like what we're going through right now and you are just in a bad place, meaning you've just retired, you're beginning to draw down those assets out of your buckets, you might say, and the market is eating those asset values up as well, it can be disastrous because what can happen is money that you planned on maybe lasting for 30, 35 years now may only last 20 years because of the timing of when the market went down. And so if it happens early on in someone's retirement cycle, it can be devastating. And there's, again, without a plan, you could be in serious trouble in a very short amount of time because you didn't know about or understand sequence of return risk.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's something that, you know, it's hard for us to truly show that or explain that 100% when we're talking here on TV. But ultimately, that is one of the biggest risks that folks are facing when it comes to volatility in the market. And a lot of times we've heard from maybe from clients that they've been told by their advisor that they've got a 60-40 portfolio, they're prepared for retirement, they're being conservative. But really that 60-40 portfolio, what is that? It's 60% stocks, 40% bonds, right? And so the idea there is that 40% in bonds is going to provide diversification, a lower growth in their investment, but more protection, right? But if we look back at the most recent 12, 14 months or so, maybe a little longer than that, we see that bonds have actually gone down with stocks, right? So that 60-40 portfolio is more like 100 in the sense that it's all doing the same thing. They're all going in the same direction. And that's not diversification, right? That's not true diversification. Something else that we hear quite a bit too is target date funds. Target date funds remove the need for true management. What would you say to that, Mark?
Yeah, and that's something, and I'd like to go back to a point we were just talking about. There was nowhere to run last year. So your equities, your stocks were going down, then interest rates were rising, and we know that bonds in connection with interest rates, we use the illustration of a teeter-totter. So if interest rates are rising, bond values are dropping. If interest rates are staying flat or going down, the value of the bonds is good. So right now, we're not big fans of bonds. I think there's bond alternatives that are going to do a lot better for clients, but yet they're convinced to listen to that old modern portfolio theory, 60-40 split. BlackRock, the largest money manager in the world, just did a study, and they came right out and said, we've got to throw out the old playbook. It doesn't work right now. And so we're big believers in that theory. You cannot plan based on the old rules, because if you do, you're probably going to get spanked a little bit, and it's going to hurt. And so, again, having a true written plan to help you deal with volatility is going to be critical to extending the life of your retirement.
Right, and that's kind of the similar story with target date funds, right? Is that as you get closer to the target date, let's say 2030, 2035, 2040, whatever it is, as you get closer to that date, the fund automatically invests for you more into bonds. But again, as bonds are going down and they're not the safe investment that once was thought or that people hoped for, they're really exposing themselves in a much larger way than they realize, right? So it's something that we want to do the best that we can to understand where we're at, what that looks like for us, and how it's going to affect us in the future. So for our first 10 callers, we have a special offer. You want to let our viewing audience at home know what that is, Mark?
Yeah, so please, what we're going to do is we're going to do an optimization of your Social Security, but we're also going to look at the volatility inside your portfolio. We're going to do a riskalyze. We're also going to look at your tax situation. We want to analyze the cash flow that you have. Where's your income going to come from, and maybe how to best move assets to your children. So if you've saved at least $250,000 or more, you maybe have worked at Boeing for decades, or you're just flat concerned about what's happening in the world, what do I need to do, please pick up the phone, 844-342-7142, because if you do that, we're going to design a written plan that's done by a certified financial planner. So please pick up the phone, 844-342-7142, and let's have a complimentary, no obligation conversation, and you'll be able to keep your checkbook at home.
Well, it's nice to have you all with us today. Please don't hesitate to take advantage of that offer. The number's on the screen. There's a QR code for you to make it easy. Don't change the channel. We're going to talk more about market volatility, more about risk when we come back right here on Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 now to receive your complimentary tax map with your written financial plan. Learn multiple strategies that can protect you from higher taxes now and in the future. Taxes are a threat to your financial stability in retirement. Protect yourself from the potential threat of rising taxes. As a retirement planning financial advisory firm, Casey, Mark, and the team will help you navigate the financial waters to pursue your retirement goals. Call 844-342-7142 today. Casey, Mark, and the team offer inclusive retirement services, such as investment directives for your portfolio, income-producing strategies, and wealth preservation plans for your family and legacy. Call Mark Casey and the team at 844-342-7142 right now for your complimentary tax map with your written financial plan. Discover tax strategies to keep more of what you have saved in retirement, or use the QR code below to schedule today.
Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm Casey Elkins. I'm here with Mark Stimson. We're talking about risk, market volatility, things that are going to affect your retirement directly, things that affect all of us, but things that we need to be aware of. When it comes to market volatility, Mark, there's so much going on, so much that folks don't understand. And we've talked about this before. Inside of a 401k, there's 10, 15, 20 different funds maybe that somebody can pick from.
If you're fortunate enough.
If you're fortunate enough, right? Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And with that, let's say you've got 20 funds or so. Do you really understand what each one of those does, right? So many folks don't really truly understand what each fund is and how it works, and should they just be in one fund or multiple? We've seen folks that put 5% into each one, right? Then that's their diversification. So there's lots of different things that we've seen out there, but I think maybe something that is so eye-opening is you and I, we teach retirement classes, right? We
Right.
teach them at local colleges, we teach them at museums in the area. And with that, lots of people come up and ask us questions after the workshop. They tell us what's going on, and so we get to hear firsthand what's going on in our students' lives and our listeners' lives, which is great, right? It helps us better understand what we can do to help. But I'll share this story, and maybe we've talked about it before, I don't recall, but there was a benefits administrator, maybe you remember this. There was
Yeah.
a benefits administrator that attended one of our workshops, and she came up after the fact, and we were talking about target date funds and how the market's going, things like that, like we've been talking about on the show today.
Right.
And she came up and admitted that she really didn't understand what a target date fund was, and that she didn't know or understand what all the funds were in the plan that she was the administrator for.
Yeah.
And I think that really just goes to highlight or does a good job of highlighting the fact that if the plan administrator doesn't understand the details and the options, it's really a good chance that all the employees probably don't understand all the options as well, right? And so
Yeah.
this is something that we're very, very concerned about this. We're very passionate about this because this directly affects everybody that we talk to. And it's something that we want everybody to understand. So in that regard, how would working with a professional help somebody when it comes to market volatility, when it comes to investing and growing their account? What does that look like? How is that a benefit?
One of the things that I think all the viewers are thinking right now as to possibly why they have never engaged with a planner is they don't want to pay for it, right? They're thinking, oh, he's going to charge me too much. Well, one of the things that's interesting, Vanguard just did a study very recently, and they came right out and said that on average, not everybody, but on average, if you hire the services of a good financial planner, now there is a difference between good and bad, and we believe they should be a fiduciary if they're going to do this type of planning. But if you do, Vanguard came right out and said that you're probably going to average between 3 to 4% more on your portfolio because you're using a money manager. Now, if you're scared to pay 1%, but you gain 3 or 4, you're probably missing the boat a little bit, right? So, but again, a lot of us would agree. We like to get a lot of benefits, but never pay for anything, right? We want to get it as cheap as we possibly can. And one of those old sayings is, you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah.
So some of us that are trying to do this on our own might be struggling and may not understand all of the choices and where to go at certain times. And that's where a professional that's helping you with a plan can help guide your ship through the storm and make money even sometimes when the markets are down. There are ways that we can still make money in a negative market, but you're not going to probably do that by trying to time the market yourself or figure it out on your own. That's where a planner can really help you.
And at the very minimum, if things are going the wrong way, what can we do just to protect ourselves from what's coming, right? It would be a lot better to have a 0% than a negative 15%, right? So nobody's excited about no return, but I'd be a lot more excited about a 0 than a negative 15. So it's just depending on the circumstance and what's appropriate. Now we're talking about market risk, we're talking about volatility, but you mentioned something specific that I kind of want to detour and talk a little bit about. Fiduciary. You mentioned that word fiduciary. Now that's a buzzword, right? We hear it a lot. It's talked about a lot, but lots of folks ask us, what does that mean? And I think it's important that we address that and let the folks know at home what a fiduciary is. So what is a fiduciary, Mark?
Yeah, and so a fiduciary is someone that gets a certain license. That all attorneys, when they pass the bar, they are fiduciaries. When we got our securities license as IARs, we became what's known in this industry as fiduciaries. So, but you could work with somebody, let's say at a big box store that sells stocks or bonds, could be 7 license, but they work under what's known as a suitability standard, not the fiduciary standard. But there is one thing I'd like to highlight to our viewers today. Bernie Madoff was a fiduciary. How did that work out for everybody, right? All attorneys are supposed to do the right thing. How's that working out for everybody? So the point is, we can have a great title as being a fiduciary, but you still have to do the right thing, and it matters. That's why we suggest to everybody that calls our radio show or sees us on TV, Google our company, see how many negative reviews that we have. You're going to find it's fairly impressive in that regard, because we don't have a negative one. But there's a reason, because we believe that you got to do the right thing.
Right.
But that's why we do believe working with a fiduciary that is specialized in their training can really benefit you in the long run and bring about, because there's a tremendous difference between the accumulation advisor and the distribution advisor. And we'll talk more about that, but working with a fiduciary can be a game changer for a lot of folks.
Right, and in a nutshell, being a fiduciary means that you're required to put your client's interests ahead of your own.
Right.
And that's really the key, right? I mean, if
Yep.
we could sum it up in a very simple way,
That's it.
that's it. That's what it all boils down to. And if you're looking for somebody to help you with anything, you would want to have somebody, hire somebody to help you and put your interests
Right.
above their own, right?
Yeah.
We want that in all aspects of our life, and fiduciary means that that's required of that
Right.
individual. So that's really important. Now, one thing that I want to highlight, because we're talking about market volatility, 401ks, IRAs, right? That's where that market volatility is really hitting a lot of folks. And that being said, maybe if we think back to our parents, our grandparents' retirement, maybe they didn't worry so much about market volatility. They didn't talk so much about their income or their money that they had, because realistically, they had guaranteed sources of income, right? They had a pension, they had Social Security, and maybe on top of that, they had market accounts as well. But that was the smaller of the of the three pieces, right? They had guaranteed income. And so with pensions kind of being done away with, we don't see them nearly as much as we used to. That creates more pressure on our 401k, on our IRA. They have to perform well. We have to understand how they're working. And so this is of the utmost importance for the current generation that's moving towards retirement, and all those that will follow after the fact. And so with that, we have a special offer for our first 10 callers. The number's on the screen. Mark, can you share with them more about what they can expect?
Yeah, you know, Casey just mentioned, because the pensions have kind of gone away, the pressure is on you as an individual, right, to figure all this out. So what we want to do is create a written plan, kind of a roadmap, that's going to show you mathematically exactly how your retirement's going to work and look. We're going to deep dive into Social Security maximization for you. We're going to take a hard look at your tax liability. Where are you paying taxes from? What buckets are you drawing from? What's the way to best do that? What about income? Casey just mentioned how important it is that we have guaranteed income sources. We're going to look at what about your health care? We're going to look at that. We're also going to look at your plan that you have in place when it comes to passing assets on to your children. All of these need to be in written form, done by a certified financial planner. So please pick up the phone, 844-342-7142. That's 844-342-7142. Come on in. We're going to have a complimentary discussion about your personal situation, but we're going to provide a written plan when you do come in.
Don't hesitate to pick up the phone, 844-342-7142. Get your written financial plan just for you, put together by a certified financial planner. We're talking about risk today, market volatility. We're going to talk about defining risk when we come back right here on Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary written financial plan with Risk Report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles an hour if 40 miles an hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment election since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 for your own investment risk report and written financial plan. Do you know exactly how much risk you're taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Mark, Casey, and their team at 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary risk report and written financial plan. Or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.
Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm Casey Elkins here with Mark Stimson. We're talking about market volatility, things that are going on out there that's hard to predict, hard to understand, but we have to know how they're going to affect us. Now, when we left you before the break, we were talking about defining risk, and that's so important. We hear lots of ambiguous terms out there: conservative, moderate, aggressive. But there's issues surrounding that. We don't know exactly what that means from person to person. When I say I'm a conservative investor, that could look very different than when you say you're a conservative investor. So how do we get those two to match? How do we make sure that we understand each other properly? So Mark, maybe I can ask you that. How do we define risk when it comes to our investments like this?
That is such an important question to truly understand. We use, and the investment world uses what's known as a program called Riskalyze. So what Riskalyze is going to do, and we do this with all our clients, it's going to ask you a set of questions. And based on how you respond and answer those questions, it's going to assign a risk number to you. And the risk really goes from 1 to 100. The higher the number, if you're 100, well, you're speculative, hedge fund, shoot for the moon. We know that if you wanted to invest just in the S&P 500, that's going to come in a risk score right around 75. So the lower the risk number, the lower the more conservative that you want to be. And so we need that number assigned to you. And then once we have that, we're going to be able to develop a portfolio and strategies inside the portfolio that's going to be customized to your risk number. Because if you don't have a number, you mentioned it. I could come as a 50, but I might say, "Oh no, I'm aggressive. I want to buy individual stocks." Well, we can't do that. And that's why all of us need to that do true planning, use Riskalyze to really minimize the risk and understand where you are at as an individual.
Right. It's kind of like that game Telephone, if you ever played that when you were a kid, right? You got 5 or 6 people, and one person tells this person a certain saying, and then this person passes it on, you whisper it, right? And by the time it gets to the end, it's totally different. And it's the same thing. There can be unintentional miscommunication between an advisor and a client. And this is something that we've chosen to get rid of in our practice, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to understand as best we can that particular person, that individual and their circumstance, and build something customized and special for them. And so we've got to find a way to define risk, and you just illustrated how we do that, or explained how we do that. Now, when it comes to that risk, I think there's something that with the current market, if we rewind before things started to get a little hairy in our investments, if we just go back, 15, 16 months ago before that happened, it almost was euphoric, right? We would talk with folks and they're like, the market always goes up, right? Things are always going to look up. It's always going to come back. We're not real concerned about that. And what we saw was a lot of people beginning to take more risk than they had in the past, more risk than I think they were truly comfortable with, or at least that they understood. And so maybe let's rewind a little bit more. Let's go back to 2008. What does that look like, Mark?
Yeah, in fact, this is important, I think, because there's a lot of rules that happened because of 2008 that have kind of been forgotten. And one of them is to not trust the financial markets, risk models. How did that work out in 2008? See, they weren't telling us how bad the risk truly was. So we believe as fiduciaries and people that truly care about our clients, risk is something we want to pay attention to 24/7, 365 days a year. Because if you don't, you lose contact with your clients, because we need to be looking at them as individuals and not as a computer or computer program, which is what a lot of Wall Street is doing these days, and that you just can't do it. If you do, the personalization goes away. And I'd like to share this one thought. This article talked about this, rules that were forgotten. And this is the point. It said this: nowhere does it say that investors should strive to make every last dollar of potential profit. But here was the key thought: consideration of risk must never take a back seat to returns. I'd like to read that again. Consideration of risk must never take a back seat to returns. And we see that because one of the main pillars of our practice is helping our clients protect on the downside, exactly what's happened this past 12 months. We don't want them to lose 20% or 30%. Now, we may be down 5 or 6, but it's a lot easier to recover from 5 or 6 than it is from 20 or 30.
That's right.
And so, you know, this is something we care tremendously about, and you've got to pay attention to it and treat each client as an individual and not a computer.
Yeah, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. Every situation is unique. Very rarely does a one-size-fits-all anything work. As a matter of fact, there's a saying called one size fits none. And we can really apply that to our finances, right? That if we're in a financial plan for the future that is a quote unquote one size fits all, we're kind of just put into this algorithm and it's kind of set it and forget it, or this is what everybody else is doing that's our age or something along those lines, that realistically we might be in a one size fits none type of situation.
Right, exactly.
So we've truly got to understand how this is going to affect us and what we can really do. So as you mentioned, everything is unique, or every situation is unique, and so with that, a defined income plan, a customized financial plan, we know that that's something that each individual needs, each retiree needs. Before they get to retirement, ideally, right, if we're planning 5 to 10 years in advance, we have more choices available to us than somebody who's just retired. But nonetheless, wherever you're at in the retirement journey, this is something that you're going to need. So with that, we've put together a special offer for our viewers. Can you please share that with them, Mark?
You know, for the first 10 callers, and Casey just really hit the nail on the head, you deserve a written plan. And I don't want you to raise your hand because I can't see it anyway, but if you were to raise your hand, do you have a written plan? Or do you just have a portfolio? It's a total difference, right? So what we want to do is customize one just for you. We're going to look at your Social Security. We're going to optimize that, show you how to do that. What about the taxes you're paying? When and how you pay your taxes. That needs to be really looked at. What about your income sources? Where's it coming from? Is it guaranteed? Your cash flow analysis, what you need every month. We're going to look at any legacy planning that you might want to do. So please pick up your phone, 844-342-7142. If you've saved at least $250,000 or more, you've worked at Boeing, please call us 844-342-7142, because we're going to customize a written plan done by a certified financial planner to meet your personal situation. And we look forward to seeing you in our office with a complimentary review. You won't have to pay us a dime. Keep your checkbook at home and come in and have a conversation with us.
Thank you very much, Mark. We've really enjoyed having you here with us. Please, we'd like to see you next week right here on Elevate Your Wealth.